I was staring at my wife's phone when I realized my 12-year marriage was a lie. Not because I was snooping, though I guess technically I was, but because Amanda had left it on the kitchen counter while she showered, and the notification that lit up the screen made my blood run cold. Last night was amazing. Can't wait until Greg's out of town again. Delete this. The sender's name was Kyle Patterson, my business partner, the guy who'd been my best friend since college, the man who'd stood beside me as my groomsman, who'd helped me pick out Amanda's engagement ring, who'd been at every birthday party for our twin daughters. My hands were shaking as I picked up the phone. The shower was still running upstairs. I had maybe 5 minutes. I didn't need a passcode. Amanda had always used my birthday, said it was romantic. The irony wasn't lost on me as I opened her messages. 3 months. They'd been sleeping together for 3 months, and I'd been completely blind to it. Worse, I'd been the one creating their opportunities. Every business trip I'd taken to expand our consulting firm, every late night at the office, every weekend golf tournament, they'd been using my absence to destroy everything I'd built. The messages were detailed, graphic. They talked about me like I was an obstacle, a nuisance to work around. Amanda complained about our intimacy, about how I was always working, about how she deserved better. Kyle agreed, called me a fool, said I didn't appreciate what I had. The water shut off upstairs. I did the only thing I could think of. I grabbed my own phone and started taking pictures of her screen. My fingers flew across the glass, scrolling and photographing, months of evidence documenting their affair. Hotel receipts Kyle had sent her. Photos they'd taken together. Plans for their next meeting. There was more. So much more. Messages about how they'd used company funds to pay for hotel rooms. Discussions about our finances. My finances, that Amanda had no business sharing. Details about client contracts that were confidential. Greg, you down there? Amanda's voice from the top of the stairs made me jump. I set her phone back exactly where she'd left it and stepped away from the counter. Yeah, just grabbing coffee, I called back, amazed at how steady my voice sounded when my entire world was crumbling. She came down 10 minutes later, hair wrapped in a towel, wearing the silk robe I'd bought her for our anniversary. She kissed my cheek like she did every morning, poured herself coffee, picked up her phone. I watched her face as she read Kyle's message. Watched her type back quickly, then delete the entire conversation. Watched her smile at me like nothing was wrong. What time's your flight to Denver? She asked. 2 o'clock. The Denver trip. A 3-day conference I'd been planning for months. I'd asked Kyle to come, but he'd said he needed to stay and handle things at the office. Now I knew why. The girls have soccer practice tomorrow. I'll handle pickup. She sipped her coffee, scrolling through her phone. Planning her betrayal right in front of me. I wanted to confront her right there. Wanted to throw the evidence in her face and watch her scramble to explain. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the lawyer in me. I'd done corporate law before starting the consulting firm, and I knew better than to show my hand before I had all my cards in order. Actually, I heard myself say, the conference got moved up. I need to leave tonight instead. Amanda's eyes lit up, just for a second, before she schooled her expression into disappointment. Oh no, really? That's such short notice? I know, I'm sorry. The words tasted like ash. I'll probably be gone 4 days instead of 3. Maybe 5. There are some networking events they added. That's okay, honey. We'll manage. She was already typing on her phone, probably texting Kyle. I went through the motions of packing, kissing my daughters goodbye, Emma and Sophie, 8 years old, still young enough to hug their dad without embarrassment, and headed to the airport. But I didn't get on a plane to Denver. Instead, I checked into a hotel 15 minutes from our house and started making calls. First to James Whitmore, a family law attorney I'd met at a bar association event. Then to Patricia Wells, a private investigator whose card I'd kept after she'd helped with a client's case. By midnight, I had a plan. Patricia would document everything, follow Amanda and Kyle, get photographs, gather evidence that would hold up in court. James would start preparing divorce papers, but we wouldn't file yet. Not until I had everything I needed. And I needed a lot. Because this wasn't just about adultery anymore. Those messages about company funds, about confidential client information, Kyle had been stealing from our business, using company credit cards for personal expenses, padding invoices, maybe worse. And Amanda had known about all of it, had helped him hide it. I spent that first night going through everything on my phone, every screenshot I'd taken, making notes and timelines. The hotel room felt sterile and cold, nothing like the home I'd built with Amanda, the life I thought we'd had together. My phone buzzed. A text from Amanda. "Miss you already. Have a safe flight. Love you." I stared at those words for a long time before I responded. "Love you too." It was the last lie I planned to tell her. The call from Dennis Harper, head of corporate security at my firm, came through at 2:47 p.m. on Tuesday. I was in the hotel room reviewing Patricia's preliminary surveillance report when my phone buzzed. "Greg, we need to talk. In person." His voice had that clipped, no-nonsense quality I'd heard him use when dealing with vendor fraud cases. "What's going on?" "Not over the phone. Can you come to the office?" I'd been avoiding the office since Friday, maintaining the fiction of my Denver trip. "I'm still in Denver. Conference runs through Thursday." A pause. "This can't wait. When's your next flight back?" The urgency in his tone sent a chill through me. Dennis didn't panic. In 15 years of running security for mid-sized consulting firms, he'd seen everything from expense account padding to sexual harassment cases. Whatever this was, it was serious. "What's this about?" "Potential breach." "I need you here, Greg. Today, if possible." I looked at the scattered documents on my hotel bed. Bank statements, phone records, Patricia's surveillance photos of Amanda and Kyle entering the Marriott on Spring Street. I can catch a red-eye, be there first thing Wednesday morning. Make it happen. The line went dead. I sat there for a moment, mind racing through possibilities. Dennis had discovered something. The question was what, and how much did it overlap with what I already knew? I called the office number, got Brenda at reception. "Hey, I need to move some meetings around. Something came up in Denver. Can you pull my calendar for Wednesday morning?" "Sure thing, Greg. How's the conference?" "Productive." The lie came easier each time. Real eye-opening. I spent the rest of Tuesday afternoon making my fake trip look real, posting a photo I'd found online of the Denver Convention Center to my barely used LinkedIn, sending a few emails timestamped to Mountain Time using a VPN. The deception had become almost mechanical. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept running scenarios. Dennis had found something in the company systems. Maybe Kyle's embezzlement had triggered automated fraud detection. Maybe someone had noticed the hotel charges. Maybe, and this thought made my stomach turn, the breach went deeper than I'd realized. At 6:30 a.m. Wednesday, I drove to the office, stopping first at my house to grab my travel bag from the garage where I'd stashed it. I needed to look like I'd just flown in. The kitchen light was on. Amanda would be making breakfast for the girls, getting them ready for school. Playing the devoted mother while planning her exit strategy with my business partner. I didn't go inside. Dennis was waiting in my office when I arrived at 7:15. He'd brought coffee, never a good sign. Dennis only played host when he was about to deliver bad news. "Close the door," he said. I did. He slid a manila folder across my desk. "We've got a problem." Started as a routine audit of our cloud storage access logs. I run them quarterly, check for unusual patterns. Found something 3 days ago that didn't sit right. I opened the folder. Inside were printed logs, highlighted sections showing file access times, user IDs, download histories. Someone's been pulling confidential client files, Dennis continued. Proposals, pricing strategies, competitive analyses, stuff that would be worth serious money to our competitors. My mouth went dry. Who? That's where it gets complicated. He pointed to a user ID on the log sheet. These downloads trace back to your home IP address. The room tilted slightly. My home? Your home network. Someone using your Wi-Fi pulled 37 confidential files over the past 2 months. Always late at night, always when you were traveling for business. He pulled out another sheet. Cross-referenced with your travel calendar. Every single download happened while you were out of town. I stared at the dates. February 12th. I'd been in Chicago. February 26th, Atlanta. March 8th, Boston. The pattern was unmistakable. Amanda, I said quietly. Dennis's expression didn't change. I'm not making accusations about your wife, Greg. I'm telling you what the logs show. Someone in your house has been systematically downloading proprietary information. What files specifically? He flipped to a detailed list. Client contracts, pricing models for our biggest accounts, strategic plans for market expansion. Our entire competitive playbook, essentially. Everything a rival firm would need to undercut our bids and steal our clients. I need to know if you gave anyone access to these files, Dennis said. Wife, kids, house guests, anyone. No. My mind was racing. Amanda wouldn't know how to access our corporate systems. She'd never shown interest in my work beyond the income it generated. But Kyle would know exactly how to walk her through it. The downloads were targeted, Dennis continued. Whoever did this knew what they were looking for. They weren't browsing randomly. They went straight for high-value intelligence. Have we lost any clients? Not yet. But Meridian Tech, remember that proposal we submitted last month? I nodded. Meridian was a potential 8-figure contract, our biggest pitch of the year. They went with Hartwell and Associates instead. I got a back-channel call from their procurement director yesterday. Off the record, he said Hartwell came in with a proposal that looked suspiciously similar to ours, but at 15% lower cost. Hartwell and Associates. The name hit me like a fist. Kyle's college roommate works at Hartwell, I said slowly. Brad something. They still golf together. Dennis's eyes narrowed. Brad Jennings. He's a senior partner there now. The pieces were falling into place with sickening clarity. Amanda hadn't just been sleeping with Kyle. She'd been his access point, his unwitting, or maybe not so unwitting, accomplice in corporate espionage. Kyle feeds her instructions on what files to download. She pulls them while I'm traveling. Kyle passes them to his buddy at Hartwell. They undercut our bids and steal our clients. I need to see Kyle's financials, I said. Bank records, credit cards, everything. Already requested them. HR is pulling his employment files now. Dennis leaned forward. Greg, if this is what it looks like, we're talking about industrial espionage. This isn't just grounds for termination, it's criminal. FBI gets involved in cases like this. How much are we talking about, in terms of potential losses? If Hartwell has been using our intelligence to undercut bids for 2 months, conservative estimate, we're looking at 20 to 30 million in lost revenue. That's not counting the damage to our competitive position going forward. I felt oddly calm. The betrayal had layers I hadn't even imagined. It wasn't just my marriage Kyle had destroyed. He was systematically dismantling the business we'd built together, using my wife as his tool. What do you need from me? I asked. Full cooperation. I need to interview Amanda, find out what she knows. And I need access to your home network, your computers, everything. We have to document the chain of evidence. Give me 24 hours, Dennis frowned. Greg, 24 hours. I need to secure some things first. I met his eyes. Personal things. Then you can have whatever you need. He studied me for a long moment. You know something you're not telling me. I know my marriage is over. I know my business partner has been stealing from me. And I know that when this comes out, it's going to be a bloodbath. I kept my voice level. I need one day to protect my daughters from the worst of it. Then you can burn it all down. Dennis nodded slowly. One day. But Greg, if there's evidence being destroyed, there won't be. I'm not protecting Kyle or Amanda. I'm protecting Emma and Sophie. I stood up. They're going to find out their mother helped steal from their father's company. They're going to watch their parents' marriage implode in public. I need one day to figure out how to tell them something that won't destroy them completely. Thursday morning, Dennis said. 9 a.m. I need you, Amanda, and full access to your home systems. You'll have it. I left his office and walked to the bathroom, locked myself in a stall, and finally let myself process what I'd just learned. Amanda hadn't just betrayed me personally. She'd betrayed me professionally, financially, strategically. She'd handed Kyle the tools to destroy everything I'd built. The hotel room phone rang at 6:47 a.m., jarring me from a sleep I hadn't expected to find. Dennis Harper's voice came through, clipped and urgent. We need to meet. Now. My office. I was showered, dressed, and walking through the security entrance of our building by 7:30. The office felt different this early. Empty corridors, dark conference rooms, the hum of servers the only sound. Dennis was waiting in his office with another man I didn't recognize. Greg, this is Robert Castellano, FBI, White Collar Crimes Division. My stomach dropped. We'd discussed the possibility yesterday, but seeing an actual federal agent sitting in Dennis's office made it real in a way the abstract conversation hadn't. Castellano stood to shake my hand. He was maybe 50, gray at the temples, wearing a suit that looked like it came from the same department store where I bought mine. Not the Hollywood version of an FBI agent, just a guy who investigated financial crimes for a living. Mr. Thompson, I've been reviewing the evidence Mr. Harper shared with our office. He gestured to a laptop open on Dennis's desk. I need to ask you some questions, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Are you aware that your wife has been in contact with anyone at Hartwell and Associates? Not until yesterday when Dennis showed me the connection. Have you confronted her about the data breach? No, I only found out about it yesterday afternoon. Castellano studied me for a long moment. Mr. Harper tells me you discovered your wife was having an affair with your business partner. When was that? 2 days ago. And you didn't confront her then either. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. No. I hired a divorce attorney and a private investigator instead. Something shifted in Castellano's expression. Not quite approval, but a recognition of someone who understood how to think strategically. Smart. Have you had any contact with Kyle Patterson since you discovered the affair? None. He thinks I'm in Denver right now. Good. Keep it that way. Castellano opened a folder and slid several photographs across the desk. We've been watching Hartwell and Associates for 6 months now. Different case, different target, but your wife's boyfriend's college buddy Brad Jennings is on our radar for bid rigging on federal contracts. When Mr. Harper called yesterday about industrial espionage involving Jennings, it got our attention fast. The photographs showed Brad Jennings, I recognized him from a few industry events, meeting with various people at restaurants, parking garages, office buildings, standard surveillance photos. We'd like to bring your wife in for questioning, Castellano said. But I need to know, is she a willing participant or a dupe? It was the same question I'd been asking myself since yesterday. I thought about Amanda's texts with Kyle, the casual way she'd discussed my travel schedule, the efficiency with which she'd apparently facilitated access to my home computer. I don't know, I admitted. 3 days ago, I would have said she'd never knowingly participate in corporate espionage. 2 days ago, I would have said she'd never cheat on me. Now I don't know what she's capable of. Dennis pulled up something on his computer and turned the screen toward me. We found something else this morning. Your home security system, the one that backs up to the cloud? I nodded. We'd installed cameras 2 years ago after a rash of break-ins in the neighborhood. Front door, back door, driveway. Did you know your wife disabled the interior motion sensors 8 weeks ago? What? No. Why would she? But I knew why. The same reason she'd been so careful to delete texts to schedule her meetings with Kyle during my business trips. She'd been covering her tracks. Dennis clicked through several screens. She disabled them through the app on her phone, but she didn't disable the door cameras, and she didn't know the system keeps logs of all changes. We can see exactly when she turned them off, and it corresponds with the first data breach. Castellano leaned forward. That shows consciousness of guilt. She knew what she was doing was wrong and took steps to avoid detection. That's not someone being manipulated. That's someone actively participating in a crime. The words hit harder than I expected. Some part of me had still been holding on to the possibility that Amanda was a victim in this, that Kyle had somehow used her without her knowledge. But you don't disable security cameras if you think you're doing nothing wrong. What happens now? I asked. We need to move carefully, Castellano said. If we spook Patterson or Jennings before we have everything locked down, they could destroy evidence. Right now, they think they've gotten away with it. Your wife believes you're in Denver, Patterson thinks he's in the clear, and Jennings has no idea we're connecting these dots. How long do you need? 48 hours, maybe less. We're getting warrants for Patterson's financial records, his communications, everything. We're coordinating with the U.S. Attorney's Office because, if this is what we think it is, we're looking at wire fraud, theft of trade secrets, conspiracy. Federal charges that carry real prison time. Prison time. I tried to imagine Kyle in prison and found I felt nothing but a cold satisfaction. What about Amanda? Castellano exchanged a look with Dennis. That depends on several factors. What she knew, when she knew it, how actively she participated. If she cooperates, if she's willing to testify against Patterson and Jennings, the U.S. attorney might be willing to work with her. If she doesn't, he shrugged. Conspiracy to commit wire fraud carries up to 20 years. 20 years. Emma and Sophie would be 28 years old before their mother got out of prison. I need you to do something difficult, Castellano continued. I need you to go home and act normal. Don't let on that you know anything about the data breach. Don't confront your wife about the affair. Just be normal for 2 more days. I told Dennis I'd give him 24 hours before I confronted her. I'm asking for 48. I know that's hard, but if we're going to build a case that puts Patterson and Jennings away, we need time to gather evidence without them knowing we're coming. I thought about going home, sitting across the breakfast table from Amanda, watching her smile and lie and pretend everything was fine. 48 more hours of that felt like an eternity. But I also thought about Kyle, about the smug way he'd texted Amanda about our idiot clients, about how he'd betrayed 12 years of friendship and partnership for money, about Brad Jennings getting rich off our stolen work while we lost contracts and revenue. Okay, I said, 48 hours, but I want to know everything you find. That's not usually how this works. I'm the victim here. My company, my marriage, my business partner. I want to know what you find. Castellano considered this, then nodded slowly. Within limits. I can keep you informed of the general progress, but I can't share specific investigative details that might compromise the case. Fair enough. We spent the next hour going over everything I knew. The timeline of my business trips, which files had been accessed when, every detail I could remember about Kyle's behavior over the past few months. Had he seemed nervous? Had he asked unusual questions about my travel schedule? Had he encouraged me to take certain trips? The answer to all of it was yes. In retrospect, the signs had been there. Kyle suggesting I should personally handle the pitch in Denver because the client would respond better to you. Kyle offering to cover things at the office during my trip to Boston. Kyle asking casual questions about when I'd be home, what time my flight landed, whether I'd be working from home the next day. He'd been orchestrating my absences, creating windows for Amanda to let him into my house, into my computer, into my files. He played me, I said, the realization settling like concrete in my chest. For months, he's been playing me. Yes, Dennis said quietly. He has been. Castellano closed his folder. Which is why we're going to make sure he pays for it. Go home, Mr. Thompson. Be normal. In 48 hours, we'll have everything we need, and then you can blow up their whole world. I drove home in the early morning traffic, practicing normalcy. What did normal Greg sound like? What did he talk about? How did he act around his wife when he didn't know she was destroying everything they'd built? The house was quiet when I let myself in through the garage. Amanda's car was there. She didn't have to be at her part-time job at the art gallery until 10. I found her in the kitchen, still in her robe, scrolling through her phone. She looked up when I entered, and her face broke into a smile that would have seemed genuine 3 days ago. You're back early. I thought your flight wasn't until this afternoon. I'd forgotten that detail of my fake trip. Scrambling, I set down my bag and shrugged. Meeting got canceled. Client had a family emergency. Figured I'd just come home rather than sit in a hotel room all day. Well, I'm glad you're back. She stood and kissed my cheek, and I had to force myself not to flinch away. The girls will be excited. They've been asking about you. Where are they? Still asleep. It's barely 8. 48 hours. I could do this for 48 hours. I'm going to grab a shower, I said. Airplane bathrooms are terrible. I hadn't been on an airplane, but she didn't know that. As I climbed the stairs, I heard her phone chime with a text. Probably Kyle, wondering why I was home early, scrambling to adjust their plans. Let them scramble. In 48 hours, they'd have a lot more to worry about than a changed travel schedule. The hotel room felt smaller with each passing hour. I sat on the edge of the bed, watching the clock tick past midnight. 46 hours to go. My phone buzzed. Amanda. Miss you already. Hope the presentation prep is going well. I stared at the message. 2 weeks ago, I would have smiled at her thoughtfulness. Now I knew she was just making sure I was where I said I'd be. 3 states away, out of her hair while she fed my company's secrets to Kyle. Going fine. Probably be up late working on slides. I typed back. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then appeared again. Don't work too hard. Love you. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. Agent Castellano's words echoed in my head. Act normal. I forced myself to type the words. Love you too. The lie tasted worse each time. I set the phone down and pulled out my laptop. Dennis had sent me an encrypted file an hour ago, a preliminary analysis of the stolen documents. I'd been avoiding it, but sleep wasn't coming anyway. The report was damning. Amanda hadn't just grabbed random files. She'd been strategic, selective, client contracts, proprietary pricing models, strategic plans for market expansion. Everything Hartwell and Associates would need to systematically dismantle what Kyle and I had spent 8 years building. The earliest theft was dated 2 months and 3 days ago. I pulled up my calendar from that period. March 15th. I'd been in Chicago for a conference. I remembered that trip. I'd called Amanda from my hotel room, and she'd sounded distracted. Said she was watching a movie with the girls. I'd thought nothing of it. Now I knew she'd been in my home office, logged into my computer, downloading files while our daughter slept upstairs. The next theft was 4 days later. Another business trip, this one to Boston. I cross-referenced every theft with my travel schedule. Perfect correlation. She'd waited until I was out of town, until she had time and privacy, until the girls were asleep and she could disable the cameras without me noticing they'd gone dark. My hands clenched into fists. This wasn't passion. This wasn't some affair that spiraled out of control. This was calculated, methodical, professional. My phone buzzed again. Not Amanda this time. Dennis. You awake? Yeah. Can you talk? I called him. He answered on the first ring. I've been going through the security footage from the office, he said without preamble. From the nights when files were accessed from your home IP. And? Kyle was here, every single time. Working late, he said, alone in his office. I waited. Dennis wasn't one for unnecessary drama. I pulled his computer logs. He was accessing the same files Amanda was downloading. Not moving them, not copying them. Just viewing them, getting familiar with the content. So he could tell her exactly what to look for. That's my read. He'd identify the valuable intel during the day, then she'd pull it that night while you were gone. Clean division of labor. I stood up, pacing the narrow space between the bed and the window. How long have they been planning this? Hard to say, but the affair started 3 months ago, and the thefts began 2 months ago. I'd guess they spent the first month setting things up. Getting her access to your computer, figuring out your travel schedule, establishing the pattern. Jesus, there's more. Dennis's voice went quieter. I found something in Kyle's office. Physical evidence. What kind of evidence? A burner phone, hidden in a locked drawer in his desk. I had to pick the lock. Couldn't exactly ask him for the key. Dennis, I know, technically inadmissible, but the FBI doesn't need my evidence. They've got enough for warrants now. I just wanted you to know what we're dealing with. What was on the phone? Text messages between him and Brad Jennings, going back 4 months. They referenced the Thompson opportunity starting in early March. Before the affair even started, Greg. The room tilted slightly. I sat back down. You're saying Kyle targeted Amanda deliberately. I'm saying this whole thing was planned from the beginning. The affair, the espionage, all of it. Brad needed inside access to your firm. Kyle provided the strategy. Amanda was the access point. She's not some innocent victim. No, Dennis agreed. The messages make that clear. She knew exactly what she was doing. But Kyle initiated it. He's the one who approached Brad. He's the one who suggested using Amanda. I thought about Kyle standing beside me at my wedding. Kyle holding Emma and Sophie when they were newborns, joking about being their favorite uncle. Kyle and I staying up until 3 in the morning in my garage, planning the business that would become our consulting firm. How much did Brad pay him? The messages don't specify amounts, but there are references to performance bonuses tied to successful bid interceptions, and a promise of a senior partnership at Hartwell once they'd bled your firm dry enough to force a merger or acquisition. They were going to destroy us, then Kyle was going to jump ship. That's the play. And Amanda would have divorced you, taken half of whatever was left, and presumably ended up with Kyle. Everybody wins except you. I looked at my reflection in the darkened window. The man staring back looked older than he had 3 days ago. When does the FBI move? Castellano said 48 hours. That puts us at Thursday morning. They're getting warrants approved, coordinating with the U.S. Attorney's Office. This is bigger than just your firm now. If they can connect Brad to other instances of bid rigging, we're talking RICO charges. What do I do until then? What you've been doing. Act normal. Go through the motions. Don't tip your hand. After we hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time. The hotel's heating system clicked and hummed. Somewhere down the hall, a door opened and closed. My phone lit up with another message. Not Amanda this time. Kyle. Hey man, you in Denver yet? I stared at it. He knew I was supposed to be in Denver. He'd probably asked casually in our last conversation, confirming my travel plans, making sure the coast was clear for whatever he and Amanda had planned. Just landed. Heading to hotel now. I lied. Cool. Listen, I've been thinking about the Meridian contract. We should talk strategy when you're back. The Meridian contract. A potential $15 million deal we'd been pursuing for 6 months. One of the files Amanda had stolen. Sure, Friday work? Perfect. Safe travels. I set the phone down and pulled up my email. There was a message from James Whitmore, my divorce attorney, sent an hour ago. Greg, received preliminary financials from Patricia's investigation. We need to discuss asset protection strategy. Can you meet tomorrow afternoon? I've blocked 2 p.m. I confirmed the meeting, then opened Patricia's attached report. She'd been thorough. Bank accounts, investment portfolios, property holdings, everything titled jointly with Amanda. The consulting firm's valuation, projected division of assets under standard divorce proceedings. Then a second section, evidence of dissipation of marital assets. Patricia had found cash withdrawals from our joint account. Small amounts, $200 or $300 at a time, spread over the past 2 months. Always from ATMs near Kyle's apartment. $12,000 total. I zoomed in on the transaction dates and times. Always during the day. Always on weekdays when I was at the office and the girls were at school. Afternoon visits. Quick stops between dropping the kids off and picking them up. I closed the laptop before I put my fist through the screen. My phone buzzed again. Amanda, sending a photo. Emma and Sophie in their pajamas, holding up a drawing they'd made. "We miss Daddy," written in crayon across the top. "The girls made this for you. They wanted me to send it before bedtime." I saved the photo, my throat tight. "Tell them I love them. I'll be home soon." That part, at least, was true. I'd be home Thursday morning, right on schedule. I'd walk through the door with my suitcase and my laptop bag, and I'd hug my daughters and I'd kiss my wife's cheek, and I'd wait. Because in less than 46 hours, FBI agents would be knocking on doors, serving warrants, making arrests, and Amanda would finally understand that some lies are too big to survive. The next 48 hours crawled by like I was wading through concrete. Wednesday morning, I drove the girls to school like I'd done 1,000 times before. Emma chattered about her science project while Sophie complained about the new seating chart in her classroom. Normal. Everything had to look completely normal. Amanda kissed me goodbye at the door, her hand lingering on my shoulder. "Have a good day," she said, and I wondered how she did it. How she looked me in the eye and smiled while knowing exactly what she'd done. "You too," I said, and the words felt like broken glass in my throat. At the office, Dennis had already briefed the executive team, minus Kyle, who'd called in sick. Convenient timing. We'd moved our most sensitive current projects to a secure server Kyle couldn't access, citing routine security upgrades. If he suspected anything, he'd have to reveal himself by asking too many questions. "The FBI wants minimal contact with Kyle before the arrest," Dennis told me in his office, voice low. "No confrontations, no warnings." Castellano was clear about that. "I'm not going to tip him off." I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "But he's been texting me all morning, asking about the Denver contract, whether we've heard back from the client." "What did you tell him?" "That I'm waiting on their legal department." I pulled out my phone, showing Dennis the message thread. Kyle's texts had the casual tone of someone who thought he'd already won. He's probably wondering how much longer he has before Brad can announce they've stolen our client. Dennis's jaw tightened. 24 hours, then it's done. I spent the afternoon in back-to-back meetings, forcing myself to focus on salvage operations. 3 clients had already jumped ship to Hartwell and Associates in the past month. I'd thought it was just aggressive recruiting, but now the pattern was obvious. Kyle had fed them our pricing strategies, our project timelines, everything they needed to undercut us. My phone buzzed during the finance review. "Amanda." Don't forget Sophie has her dentist appointment at 4. Can you pick her up from school? I stared at the message. She was still playing the role, still pretending we were a functional family with shared responsibilities and mundane logistics. Got it, I typed back. I'll handle it. The dentist's office was the same one we'd been taking the girls to since they were toddlers. Dr. Mitchell knew us by name, asked about our vacation plans while checking Sophie's molars. I sat in the waiting room with my daughter afterward, watching her pick out a toy from the treasure chest, and thought about how many of these small moments I was about to lose. Dad? Sophie looked up at me, clutching a purple bouncy ball. Are you okay? I realized I'd been staring at nothing, hands clenched on the armrests. Yeah, sweetheart, just tired. You've been tired a lot lately. 8 years old and already too perceptive. I managed to smile. Work stuff, nothing for you to worry about. But she would worry soon enough. They both would. That evening, Amanda made chicken parmesan, my favorite, though I suspected the timing wasn't coincidental. She'd been extra attentive all week, more affectionate than usual. Guilt, maybe, or covering her tracks. This is delicious, I said, because that's what I would have said before. Before I knew. She smiled across the table. I'm glad. You've seemed stressed. Big week at work. Kyle mentioned you two might be landing that Denver contract. That's exciting. I cut into my chicken, keeping my expression neutral. We'll see. Nothing's final yet. Emma launched into a story about her friend Madison's birthday party, and I let the conversation flow around me. Amanda laughed at something Sophie said. The girls cleared their plates without being asked. From the outside, we looked like any other family on any other Wednesday night. I helped with homework while Amanda did the dishes. Read both girls their bedtime stories. They were getting too old for it, but neither had asked me to stop yet. Kissed their foreheads and turned out the lights. Amanda was already in bed when I came downstairs from my office, where I'd spent an hour on a conference call with our insurance carrier. They were already preparing for the liability claims that would follow the FBI's investigation. You coming to bed? She called. In a bit. Need to finish some emails. I stayed in my office until past midnight, listening to her footsteps above me as she got ready for bed. Then silence. When I finally went upstairs, she was asleep, or pretending to be. I lay in the darkness beside her, staring at the ceiling, counting down the hours. Thursday morning arrived with gray skies and the promise of rain. I made coffee while Amanda got the girls ready for school. Normal routine, normal conversations. Emma couldn't find her math homework. Sophie needed lunch money. Amanda reminded me about parent-teacher conferences next week. I'll put it on my calendar, I said, knowing I wouldn't be there, knowing everything was about to detonate. The girls caught the bus at 7:30. Amanda left for her yoga class at 8. She'd maintained that schedule religiously for the past 3 months. I wondered if she'd been meeting Kyle there, or if yoga was just another convenient cover story. I waited until her car disappeared around the corner, then texted Dennis. She just left. His response came immediately. We're in position. Castellano says 30 minutes. The FBI would hit Kyle's house first, then Brad's office. They'd coordinate the timing so neither could warn the other. Amanda would be arrested when she returned from yoga, or wherever she actually went on Thursday mornings. I drove to the office, same route I always took, and parked in my usual spot. Kyle's car wasn't in the lot yet. Probably wouldn't be. Dennis met me at the elevator. Castellano just called. They're moving now. We went up to my office and I stood at the window overlooking the parking lot. My phone buzzed. Patricia Wells, my divorce attorney. The FBI's executing the warrants, she said without preamble. I've got someone at the courthouse filing your divorce petition simultaneously. By the time Amanda's processed, she'll be served. Good. Greg? Patricia's voice softened slightly. This is going to get ugly. Are you prepared for that? I thought about Amanda's hand on my shoulder yesterday morning, her smile across the dinner table, the way she'd kissed me goodbye, knowing exactly what she'd been doing to me, to our family, to everything I'd built. I'm prepared, I said. I hung up and checked my watch. 9:15. The girls would be in class by now, safe in their routines, unaware that their world was about to shatter. My office phone rang. Dennis's extension. Turn on channel 7, he said. I grabbed the remote and switched on the television mounted on my wall. The morning news showed a live shot of Kyle's upscale neighborhood, FBI vehicles parked in his driveway, agents in windbreakers carrying boxes from his house. Developing story this morning as federal agents execute search warrants in what sources say is a major corporate espionage investigation, the reporter said. We're told this involves alleged theft of trade secrets worth millions of dollars. My phone started ringing. Clients, probably. Board members. I let it go to voicemail. The television cut to another live shot. Hartwell and Associates downtown office building. More FBI vehicles, more agents. They'd be arresting Brad right now, perp walking him past his colleagues. And somewhere across town, Amanda was being handcuffed in our driveway. I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. There was work to do. Damage control, client retention, keeping the company alive through the scandal. But for just a moment, I let myself feel it. Not satisfaction, not victory. Just the cold, hard certainty that I'd done what needed to be done. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. Greg Thompson. Mr. Thompson, this is Agent Castellano. All 3 subjects are in custody. Your wife has been read her rights and is being transported for processing. I wanted you to hear it from me directly. Thank you. We'll need you to come in this afternoon to provide a formal statement. 2 o'clock? I'll be there. He hung up. I set the phone down and looked out the window at the ordinary Thursday morning unfolding below. People arriving for work, traffic flowing past. The world continuing like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. And there was no going back. The FBI had Amanda in custody for less than 6 hours before her attorney called mine. I was sitting in Dennis Harper's office when James Whitmore forwarded me the email. The subject line read, United States vs. Amanda Thompson, cooperation discussion. That was fast, Dennis said, reading over my shoulder. She knows what she's facing. I kept my voice neutral, but something cold settled in my chest. 20 years in federal prison was a powerful motivator, and Amanda had always been good at finding the angle that served her best. James called 10 minutes later. Greg, her attorney wants to meet. Amanda's willing to provide testimony against Kyle and Brad in exchange for a reduced sentence. I walked to the window, looking out at the parking lot where Amanda used to meet me for lunch when we first started the business. Back when I thought we were building something together. What kind of reduction are we talking about? Probation, maybe. Community service. Her lawyer's pushing hard on the manipulation angle. That Kyle groomed her. That she was a victim too. My laugh came out bitter. She disabled our security cameras, made cash withdrawals to hide her tracks. That's not the behavior of someone being manipulated. I know, and the prosecution knows it too. But she has information they want, and she's willing to trade. James paused. There's something else. She wants to talk to you. Absolutely not. Greg? No. I turned away from the window. Anything she has to say goes through attorneys. That's it. Dennis was watching me carefully. She's going to try to spin this. Paint herself as the victim, Kyle as the mastermind. Let her try. I pulled up the file Patricia Wells had compiled. The timeline of Amanda's activities, the pattern of thefts, the cash withdrawals that started 2 weeks before the first file was stolen. The evidence tells a different story. My phone buzzed. Emma's school. I stepped into the hallway to answer. Mr. Thompson, this is Principal Garrett. I wanted to check in about Emma and Sophie. We heard about the situation. News traveled fast. By now, half the city probably knew that my wife had been arrested by the FBI. They're staying with my parents for a few days, I said. I'll be picking them up this afternoon. Of course. And if they need anything when they return to school, counseling services, extra support, we're here. I thanked her and ended the call. The girls. I'd been so focused on the legal strategy, on making sure Amanda and Kyle faced consequences, that I hadn't fully processed what came next. Emma and Sophie asking where their mother was. Why she couldn't come home. My parents had told them Amanda was away on a trip. A temporary story that bought me time, but not much. James called back an hour later. The prosecution's willing to meet with Amanda's attorney, but they're not making any promises. They want to see what she's offering first. And the divorce? That moves forward regardless. I filed for emergency custody based on her arrest. The hearing's set for Monday. He hesitated. Greg, you should prepare yourself. She's going to fight this. Her attorney's already talking about how the children need their mother, how this is all a misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding when the FBI has her on video surveillance entering our house during times that match exactly with the file downloads. Dennis had shown me the footage that morning. Amanda coming home during my business trips, going straight to my office, emerging 40 minutes later. I know, but she'll try. After the call, I drove to my parents' house. My mother met me at the door, her face drawn with worry. They've been asking questions, she said quietly. Sophie wanted to know why you and Amanda both had to go away at the same time. I found the girls in the backyard, playing on the swing set my father had built when they were 4. Emma saw me first and came running, Sophie close behind. Daddy, Emma crashed into me. Are you done with your work trip? I knelt down, pulling them both close. Yeah, sweetheart, I'm done. Is Mommy coming home too? Sophie's voice was small, uncertain. This was the moment I'd been dreading. I could lie, buy myself more time, or I could start telling them a truth they were too young to fully understand. Mommy's going to be away for a while longer, I said carefully. She has some things she needs to take care of. What kind of things? Emma's eyes were too sharp, too knowing. Grown-up things. But you're going to stay with me, and Grandma and Grandpa are going to help, and everything's going to be okay. Sophie's lip trembled. Did we do something wrong? No. I pulled her closer. No, baby. You didn't do anything wrong. Neither of you did. My mother appeared in the doorway, understanding in her eyes. Girls, why don't you help Grandpa in the garden? He's planting those tomatoes you picked out. After they ran off, she sat down beside me on the porch steps. How bad is it? She asked. Bad. I told her about the cooperation offer, about Amanda's attorney trying to paint her as a victim. She's going to claim Kyle manipulated her, that she didn't understand what she was doing. Do you think that's true? I thought about the security footage, Amanda's careful movements through the house, checking over her shoulder. The way she'd looked right at the camera before disabling it, not panicked or confused, but deliberate. No, I said. I think she knew exactly what she was doing. My mother was quiet for a moment. What are you going to tell the girls? The truth, eventually. An age-appropriate version of it. I watched Emma and Sophie helping my father dig in the garden, their laughter carrying across the yard. But not yet. Not until I have to. And Amanda? Will you let her see them? The question hit harder than I expected. Whatever Amanda had done to me, to the business, she was still their mother. They loved her. Cutting her out of their lives entirely would hurt them as much as it hurt her. Supervised visits, I said finally. Once the legal situation is settled, but she doesn't get to pretend this didn't happen. She doesn't get to lie to them about why their family fell apart. My phone buzzed again. Dennis. We've got movement on the Hartwell front, he said when I answered. Brad's attorney just reached out. He wants to talk deal too. What kind of deal? He's willing to provide evidence of Kyle's involvement in other schemes. Apparently, this wasn't the first time Kyle tried to steal clients. Brad has emails going back 2 years. I processed that. Kyle had been planning this longer than I thought. The affair with Amanda wasn't the beginning. It was just the latest move in a pattern of betrayal. What does Brad want in return? Reduced charges. He's claiming Kyle was the mastermind, that he was just following along. That's convenient. Yeah, the FBI's not buying it. But the emails might be useful for your civil case against Kyle. Dennis paused. There's something else. We found another account. Kyle's been siphoning money from the business for 18 months. Small amounts. Nothing that would trigger alerts, but it adds up to about $200,000. The number didn't shock me anymore. Nothing about Kyle's betrayal could shock me at this point. Can we recover it? Maybe some of it. He spent a lot. Fancy dinners, hotel rooms, gifts. For Amanda, presumably. I thought about the bracelet Amanda had been wearing last month. She'd said it was from her sister. Another lie in an endless chain of them. Document everything, I said. I want a complete accounting of every dollar he stole. That evening, I brought the girls home. They were quiet in the car, sensing something had changed even if they didn't understand what. When we pulled into the driveway, Sophie asked, "Is Mommy inside?" "No, sweetheart. Remember? She's still away." Emma studied the house through the window. It feels different. She was right. The house did feel different. The place where I'd built a life, raised my daughters, celebrated anniversaries and birthdays. It had all been built on lies. Every memory was tainted now. But it was still home. Still the place where my daughters felt safe. I'd make sure it stayed that way. The conference room at James Whitmore's law office had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. I sat at the polished mahogany table, watching storm clouds gather on the horizon while James reviewed the final settlement documents. "Kyle took the plea deal," he said, sliding a folder across to me. 15 years federal prison, full restitution of the $200,000 he embezzled, plus his testimony against Brad Jennings in the Ryko case. I scanned the pages without emotion. 15 years. Kyle would be 62 when he got out, his career destroyed, his reputation in ruins. Everything we'd built together, gone because of his greed. And Brad? 23 years. The federal prosecutors found evidence of bid rigging going back almost a decade. Your case was just the tip of it. James pulled out another document. Hartwell and Associates is filing for bankruptcy. Between the legal fees and the clients fleeing, they're finished. I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I just felt tired. What about Amanda? James's expression shifted. She cooperated fully, testified against both Kyle and Brad. The judge gave her 3 years probation, 200 hours community service, and she's permanently barred from working in any position that involves handling confidential business information. 3 years probation. For helping destroy my company, my marriage, my trust. It seemed impossibly light, but I'd stopped expecting justice to feel fair. The divorce is final, James continued. She signed everything. No alimony, minimal child support that she'll pay to you, supervised visitation with the girls twice a month. The house, the business, the investments, all yours. She walked away with her car and whatever personal items she could fit in it. I thought about the last time I'd seen Amanda, at the custody hearing 6 weeks ago. She'd looked smaller somehow, diminished. She'd tried to catch my eye, but I'd looked straight ahead, focusing on the judge. Her attorney had argued that she'd made mistakes but deserved a second chance, that the girls needed their mother. My attorney had presented the security footage, the bank records, The timeline of deliberate, calculated theft. The judge had listened to all of it, then awarded me full custody with minimal visitation rights for Amanda. She'd cried. I'd felt nothing. There's one more thing, James said, pulling out a final document. The civil suit against Kyle's estate. We've recovered about $60,000 of the embezzled funds. The rest is gone, spent or hidden. But we've also won a judgment against him for the business losses. $3.2 million. I looked at the number. More than I'd expected to recover, though Kyle would never be able to pay it from prison. His attorneys already filed for bankruptcy protection on his behalf, James continued. But the judgment stands. If he ever has assets again, we can collect. I signed the papers, one after another, my signature marking the end of everything I'd thought my life was. How are the girls doing? James asked as I finished the last page. Better. It was true mostly. Emma had stopped asking when Mommy was coming home. Sophie had started sleeping through the night again. They saw Amanda twice a month at a supervised visitation center. Awkward 2-hour sessions where Amanda tried too hard and the girls grew quieter with each visit. My parents helped with childcare. I'd restructured my work schedule to be home for dinner every night. We'd started new routines, new traditions. Pizza Fridays, Saturday morning pancakes, Sunday hikes in the state park. The business had survived, barely. We'd lost 6 major clients, but we'd kept the core team together. Dennis had been promoted to COO. We'd brought in new partners, rebuilt our reputation slowly. It would take years to get back to where we'd been, but we were moving forward. I stood up, gathering the signed documents. Thank you, James, for everything. He shook my hand. You did the hard part, Greg. You kept your head when everything was falling apart. Not everyone could have done that. I drove home through the gathering storm, rain starting to spatter against the windshield as I pulled into the driveway. Emma and Sophie were visible through the kitchen window, doing homework at the table with my mother supervising. Normal life. Or the new version of it anyway. That evening, after the girls were asleep, I sat in my home office, the same room where Amanda had stolen files while I was away. I'd thought about converting it to something else, erasing the memory. But that felt like running away. Instead, I'd changed the locks on the filing cabinets, upgraded the computer security, and kept working. The past had happened. Pretending it hadn't wouldn't change anything. My phone buzzed. A text from Dennis. Board meeting went well. Signed 2 new clients today. We're going to make it. I typed back, never doubted it. That was a lie, but a harmless one. I'd doubted everything over the past 3 months. Doubted my judgment, my instincts, my ability to trust anyone again. But slowly, carefully, I was rebuilding. Not the life I'd had before. That was gone. Destroyed by people I'd loved and trusted. But something new. Something built on truth instead of lies. On evidence instead of faith. I'd learned the hardest lesson. That love and loyalty aren't guarantees. That the people closest to you can become strangers. That betrayal doesn't announce itself with warning signs and red flags. Sometimes it wears a wedding ring and sleeps beside you for 12 years. But I'd also learned that I was stronger than I thought. That when everything collapsed, I could keep moving forward. That I could protect my daughters, save my business, and survive the worst thing I'd ever experienced. The rain picked up, drumming against the windows. Upstairs, I heard Sophie call out in her sleep, then settle. Emma's nightlight glowed under her doorway. I closed my laptop and turned off the office light. Tomorrow I'd take the girls to school, go to work, have dinner with my parents, read bedtime stories. The same routine we'd built over the past 3 months, one day at a time. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was real, honest, mine. And that, I discovered, was enough. The truth doesn't always set you free, but it does show you who you really are, and who everyone else is too. Sometimes that knowledge comes at a terrible price. But once you have it, once you've stared directly at the worst betrayal imaginable and survived it, you learn something valuable. You're stronger than the lies that tried to destroy you. And that strength, earned through pain and built on truth, is something no one can ever take away.